Welcome to It's No Secret, a podcast for those who want their money questions answered.
Join us as we talk to real Kiwis and share truths about our own financial lives, because the truth is, there is no secret to achieving financial freedom.
Hi, lovely listeners. In today's episode, we're doing a Money Moments update with Kat and I. Very excited. The last time we did this was in July, so we thought, why not jump on?
In July?
Yeah, it's been
Oh
a
my
while.
gosh.
Yeah, 3 months.
Wait. Oh,
July this year.
I was like July last year?
No.
Oh, jeepers. Okay.
This was pre-holiday.
Okay,
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
great.
so about 3 months ago.
Fantastic.
At the time of recording. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of stuff has changed,
Yeah.
but that is not a long time.
No, it isn't.
It's only September.
Yeah. So it's not even a quarter.
Holy
really.
moly. Okay.
But we've been on a ride.
Jeepers.
So to set the scene of what we talked about last time, we talked about what Kat's balance sheet was looking like and how it's changed since 2019, so in the last kind of 5 years, how Luke's student loan was going. In the early days of the podcast, this was sitting well over 100,000, which it has decreased significantly,
Yeah,
right?
I think it's half that now
Oh,
from memory.
Great. Perfect. Love that. And then I had a bit of a whine about why I feel like I'm being financially left behind compared to my peers. And
Oh my God, it wasn't a whine.
oh, yeah, it was some honest truth.
It was, just a heartfort sharing. Of
Yeah,
the fact
I'm
that
going to
you
be
feel
doing
like-
it again today. So
Okay, fine. Okay.
yeah, get ready for
I'll stop interrupting
2.0. And then also we were just talking about how Ollie and I are kind of like going around in the circle of, enjoy the holiday now, pay money to travel versus investing for future, and whether that looks like investing in the business or a house kind of scenario. So we've made some decisions, which we're going to get into later, but I wanted to start with Kat because she's just been on a lovely long holiday, which is she's coming back refreshed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have.
Great.
I am refreshed.
Yeah. So how was the holiday?
Fantastic. Holiday was amazing.
Yeah.
Holiday was great. We went away for 4 weeks, which was definitely enough of a proper break to be very, very refreshed. I think,
Nice.
I've said this a few times this week, but
Yeah.
I found it a significant difference going away for a decent chunk rather than just having kind of the standard 2-week holiday, which I think is pretty normal for a lot of people in corporate, particularly if you have, I feel like taking 4 weeks off is quite hard for a lot of people. So I definitely feel that was amazing. Also, hot tips. I've got tons of travel tips that are very unsolicited that I'm not going to share here because people will just be really bored. But I was like, maybe a whole separate
Are they
episode.
finance related or just general?
More general,
Or
but
both?
also finance related, because I think I'll give you the finance ones because I had said to Luke, I was like, you need to remind me of this in future when we're booking future holidays,
okay.
because, in the moment when booking stuff, I was complaining about it. But then as you actually experience it, you're like, I'm really glad I did this thing. So
nice.
one example of that is of our total holiday costs, accommodation was disproportionately rather, very expensive. And I think kind of 2 reasons for that. One, we're just really out of touch in New Zealand with how much accommodation costs internationally at the moment, particularly like post-COVID. And 2, the exchange rate is cooked. So,
Yeah. Money doesn't go as far.
thanks NZ. Yeah, like when you're transferring all of your New Zealand dollars into euros, I was looking at the accommodation being like, how does anyone afford this? I'm like, I'm pretty sure people in Europe and America can afford this. It's just that we can't afford this because we're getting 55 cents in the dollar, if that.
Yeah.
Like,
what's it like with Australian dollars, do you know?
it's a little bit higher.
Yeah.
So about 60.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But still not great.
But I don't think
Yeah.
I exchanged any of my money above like 55 cents equivalent.
Right,
So
yeah.
it was closer to like
Half.
52, 53.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and then in combination to that, a lot of in particular, Europe, big cities, but also I know this had happened in New York when we went, have changed their rules around Airbnb post-COVID. And so one of the things in Amsterdam in particular, where we spent quite a chunk of time, is that they are cracking down or have cracked down on Airbnb because it was causing a shortage of properties in the city. And so any property in the CBD is now only able to be rented on Airbnb for up to 30 days in 1 year.
Yeah, right.
Basically to disincentivize people from buying apartments to then only rent out on Airbnb or for tourists. And it was also causing too much competition against like the hotels. So if you think about that, you're basically getting from a small pool of people that are able to leave their homes, because no one's going to buy an investment property if they can only rent it out for Airbnb on 30 days of the year and then the rest of it is empty. So your pool of options is really small, and then it's also really expensive. because you're going to put the price up to make it worth your while, essentially. And so I had to very quickly readjust my expectations as to how much accommodation was going to cost us when we were actually booking. And before we went, I was feeling a little bit uncomfortable about that. But then when we were there, the 2 Airbnbs in particular that we had in Berlin and Amsterdam 100% made the trip.
Yeah,
like
that's cool.
So much. And now I literally said to Luke, I was like, you need to remind me that we are never staying in a hotel ever again as a family. Like if it's Luke and I, fine. If you're a couple, fine. But, you know, we spent 2 nights out of basically 4 weeks in a hotel with Lily, and that hotel room didn't even have a fridge, which has become common. And you know, you're fixed into being forced to go out for every single meal. You have basically no flexibility, and I was like, that's just not really accommodating, particularly for a young family, but I imagine for any kind of family age, right? So deal breaker going forward is spend money on accommodation and be okay to do that, and like budget that in, because the Airbnb stuff really, really made the holiday. It was amazing. Jason, who's my best friend that lives in Amsterdam, came to our Airbnb and was like, this is better than my house.
Like, can I live here?
He was like, you have crushed this. I'm like, thank you. I should be like a holiday planner now.
A travel agent on the side.
Literally.
So was it mainly the like ease of which you could be in the space and then and cook and stuff like that? That's kind of the
kitchen,
benefit.
Having a kitchen, living room, having like a full-size bathroom.
Good location too, right? You're right across the road from the playground.
Great location.
Right,
But even then, like the hotel that we stayed at the tail end in Amsterdam was also in a fantastic location and really walkable, and the hotel was beautiful, but it's just harder, you know, for that. And I think as well, like having had the travel experience with young children where anything could happen, you could get sick, even adults get sick, like Luke got COVID last time and all that kind of stuff. That's a lot harder to do if you're basically in a studio. And there's two other people in your space. Exactly. And then of course, because we took my parents, so we were traveling with 4 adults, the reason that I kind of got myself over the hump of paying for so much in accommodation on Airbnb was the fact that we would have to get 2 hotel rooms anyway if we were to go down that route. And then you end up spending almost the same as you would, but you don't have any of the niceties of being able to eat at home and all that kind of stuff. And just little things of not having to go out for breakfast and being able to kind of spend your time. And, you know, if you're traveling with a group or traveling with, I mean, heck, if you're traveling with your own kids, like you want to hide from them sometimes, you know, very hard to do that in a hotel room. Whereas in Amsterdam, because of how the buildings are built, we had a 3rd and 4th floor apartment because they had bought 2 apartments and combined them. And then because they were the top 2, it also had a rooftop. So it literally was like 3 floors.
Yeah, that's so nice.
That just, you know, when, there's 4 adults and a young child and everyone's a little bit jet lagged, it was, dream state. So
do you think that you also saved money by not eating out? Like,
absolutely,
you know,
absolutely.
Did that offset the cost?
Yeah, we had like mum and dad ate out one night, I think, but you know, in Amsterdam, because we wanted to catch up with friends, they stayed home with Lily. We only took Lily out in that kind of portion for dinner once. You know, we didn't really eat breakfast out. We would get coffees out, but we would have breakfast at home. We could make all her snacks at home. Like that's the other thing, like prepping toddler snacks, which is just a Olympic sport in itself. Like that kind of stuff was really easy. Being able to come home, particularly when it was hot, like mum and Lily being able to come home, all of us being able to have a nap, whatever it is, like it just, it made a big difference. And I think as well, you have less pressure to go out. You know, and so therefore you do end up spending a bit less, right? Because you're quite comfortable that, okay, well, today it's raining. We're just going to chill out for half the day here and still enjoy ourselves. Not have to feel like we need to get out of a hotel room.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Love it. Sounds like a great family choice.
It was a great family choice. Great family choice. The other insight, I think, just on the money side is like flights are expensive, but I just think that that's now the norm. You know, I feel like... It's just post-COVID, and also it's so easy to forget how far away New Zealand is from everything else, you know, and the reality is we have to fly further, and so you do just have to pay more. And once you get over the uncomfortable hurdle of, I think, paying for flights and paying for accommodation, I actually found the rest of the trip quite cost effective. All the things that were expensive, so to speak, were the big ticket things that like experiences that were totally decided by us.
Yeah.
Like going to Taylor Swift.
Yeah, yeah. I was
or doing shopping. Didn't do a lot of shopping, but like if I had, but that's all the stuff that you have a choice. Didn't find like food wasn't that expensive, travel wasn't that expensive. We hired a car for one portion and that was significantly cheaper than it would be to hire a car in New Zealand, even with the exchange rate. So that kind of stuff, I'm like, that was actually really doable. It was just the hurdle of obviously getting there, paying for accommodation, and then making sure you've got something for spending money. But I felt like our spending money wasn't outrageous.
Yeah, that's good. Because I guess you're also there to like as a family, so maybe like shopping isn't the focus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like we just hired bikes and rode around. And I did do some shopping. But
I was going to say, I
wish I'd done more, but that's a whole separate conversation.
Yeah.
So holiday was great.
Good,
definitely
nice.
Like
would go again.
Likes
a summer holiday now.
Does love a summer holiday.
No, just winter.
Really enjoyed. I think the weather definitely contributed to the fact that nobody got sick this time round, touch wood. And everybody was well acclimatized and in a great mood like the whole time. There was no family arguments, which I feel like is a record for anybody. My mum actually said that it was the best family holiday we've ever been on, and I'm like, don't tell my brother.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't say that to Rob.
I know. I also feel terrible because
Did you just send him photos and be like...
Well, we started a whole other family chat group that doesn't include him. Specifically for the holiday, because I'm like, he doesn't want to see us, I don't know, organising like, we'll meet you at this restaurant or posting photos. Yeah. And so I feel like he's been really kept in the dark, which maybe is a good thing because otherwise he would have regretted not coming.
Maybe he's really enjoying his new apartment / house.
And to be fair, he's probably happy to have a break from mum and dad for 4 weeks because he was previously living with them and I think just maybe at his wit's end.
Yeah, fair enough. You're like, I'll take the baton.
Yes, exactly.
Love it.
So in the spirit of honesty, and I think probably because it's a fair assumption, I had also shared this on my Instagram, but in terms of total cost, our flights were $8,000. I think we probably spent $9,000 on accommodation. And I'm going to say probably like, we spent maybe about another $1,000, $1,500 on other forms of transport, renting cars, renting bikes, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so my kind of ballpark when we went into this was like, for a family of 3 going for that long, this is a $30,000 holiday, and probably was.
Yeah. So you kind of like hit that though. That was, you didn't go too far over.
Yeah. I feel like and it was one of those things where like for spending money for the first time, we weren't like, we basically just, we had saved up some money that we went obviously in with advance, but whilst we were there, we just used our surplus money. It's amazing to see how much money you don't spend at home.
Oh, in terms
like,
of
because
food
your pay,
and
yes,
things,
because your pay is coming in, and we put on pause, say like our gym memberships and stuff.
Yeah.
So the deductions that are going through our bank account are really our fixed expenses, right? There's no discretionary expenses. We were able to put daycare fees on pause, gym memberships on pause, other stuff on pause, like my food bag. You're not paying for any of that.
No.
It's really quite fascinating to see how quickly cash money racks up there.
Yeah. Wait, I didn't realize that you can put daycare on pause. I thought it was kind of a like.
It depends on the daycare, but ours allows it for up to 4 weeks a year.
Oh, I see.
So
the
you
idea
can't
do
is
it
that
at Christmas time again.
Yes, probably. Yeah. Although sometimes they're a little bit lenient with that. So we were able to put this whole time on pause.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell my sister that. Good to know.
Yeah. So that is good to know. But yeah.
Love it. Okay, so what else is happening now that we're back? We've spent lots of money. Are we like no more spending, or what's the plan?
I mean, no, we're definitely not on a no more spending vibe because it's my birthday this weekend.
Yes.
Absolutely plan to spend some coin.
Yeah.
Also because I'm in that phase where I just feel like I need to buy some new clothes, but that's a me problem. Anyway.
She regrets not shopping more.
I do. Also because things were cheap. Well, there's more options.
Yeah.
I'll say less about that. There's more options. But where we're at right now is we do have a laundry list of stuff that we have to do in terms of financial admin. There were quite a few things that Luke and I had on our to-do list pre-going away that we were like, let's just do this when we get back because it's otherwise a bit too overwhelming.
Yeah,
one of those things is both of our tax returns, which we should be quite motivated to do because we're getting refunds. So
great.
That will make me feel a bit better post-holiday because at least actually getting the money post-holiday feels like a nice little boost. If I had it pre-holiday, probs would have gone to spend it.
Yeah. That just would drive up the travel budget.
Exactly. So that happened. We also need to review our personal insurances. That's kind of just something that I really want to do. So kind of to recap on that, we both have income protection, we both have trauma insurance, life insurance, and total and permanent disability insurance.
Yeah.
Luke's is very expensive because he has a very specialist role.
Yeah.
So he is insured specifically for his job as being a pilot, which basically means if he couldn't be a pilot, he would get paid out. And so because of like that level of specificity, and he would be paid out quite a lot because his salary is quite high and he's also insured for quite a bit of money, then naturally the premiums are quite high. And the man is now over 40 and in the time of his life where, touch wood, like people have heart attacks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There was some stat, I need to dig this up because someone was telling us over the holiday break that it's basically between the ages of like 41 and 44.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's young, eh?
Yeah. Like,
But
shit starts
Luke
to go wrong.
just won $1,000 because he won.
True.
Did this be
Oh my God, I forgot about
Yeah.
that. He won a gym challenge immediately prior to
Because he lost
us.
10 kgs.
He did.
So I feel like he's healthy.
Yeah. And to be fair, the thing that does make me feel very good about his overall health is because I saw an article on the Herald a couple of days ago, basically, maybe it was on Stuff, pleading with men to basically go and get better like health checks because a lot of New Zealand men in particular are not very engaged with going to a GP or keeping on top of their health. And I was like, this is a real positive to being a pilot or in an industry where you're required to have, he has to have annual medicals, like full medical checks, more than I ever do at the GP kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I'm like, he's all good. He's but
fine. Yeah.
he's expensive.
Yeah.
So given that we haven't reviewed that in a while, I think the likely outcome of that is probably like trauma and income protection will stay the same, but definitely calls to review our life insurance and our total and permanent disability because they're lump sum insurances that get paid out, and that's based on things like what's your total debt and the amount that you're insured for should be based on things like what is your total debt, what is your continual upkeep. The last time we reviewed that, I think I was only working part-time and we didn't have a child and we had higher debts than we do now. So there's a few things that maybe
some variables.
Because we were probably working on the assumption that like if Luke was to pass away, maybe I would continue working part-time, but whether or not that would happen in the current scenario needs to be reviewed. So there's that. That's a real fun shit.
Yeah, that sounds not fun.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So there's that. And then we need to set a purposeful spending plan in place, which I actually got full buy-in from Luke on pre us going away. But then he was like, don't set up a budget before we go on holiday. Like that's pointless, which is very valid point. I have been really prompted to do this after coming back because on the weekend we spent like $350 at the supermarket in basically 2 days. And I honestly...
not in one big shop, like separate?
Well, over 3 separate shops. But I was like, what the fuck? Yeah. And then I bought a croissant this week, and it was $9. And I was like, New Zealand, what is happening? Like what is happening? So
that's a lot of money for a croissant.
Having been away and then coming back, I now really feel the food specifically, like cost, feels really outrageous. Particularly when you've been buying your child croissants every day that cost €1.
Yeah.
And half a kg packet of summer berries that are like €3 each.
Yeah. Don't get used to that, Lily.
Yeah, it's really depressing. Sorry, I don't want to make New Zealand sound terrible, but
No.
So I'm like, okay, we had already said that we probably need to have a slightly better food budget in particular put in place. I've actually decided to up our My Food Bag because I'm like, it's a fixed cost, and then we've decided to go My Food Bag for 4 people so that we have lunches.
Nice.
Because I think lunches and just my ad hoc like disorganization of spending and that kind of stuff is where it's at, and maybe wasting food a bit. So that's my current plan.
Nice. I like this. I think this is this is what Ollie and I do. Well, we try to take all the specials, you know, how they're like 50% off, 30% off. Yeah. So that's great. There's always go looking for a special on my I'd say. But it means that you're always guaranteed leftovers, and I think it is more cost efficient when you actually look, like if you were to go out and buy that versus
Well, I was looking at what I've paid for lunch basically every day since I've been back, and then looked at like what the per meal cost works out with on my like the per serving cost.
$10 per plate,
exactly, and it's much less. And I was like, okay, it's a little bit more work because you're cooking more food and prepping whatever, but I was like, this is a worthwhile trade-off. And also I think just the idea of having a fixed cost to that really appeals to me. It's the whole I am put off, it's gonna sound really ridiculous, but I am put off by a food budget because I don't like the stress of being at the supermarket and having to do mental maths and I'm not creative with food. I'm not that person that can be like, I want to make pesto pea risotto and peas are expensive, but they're probably not. I don't, but you know what I mean? And then
she hasn't been watching MasterChef Australia.
And then trying to sub in something else. Like I don't have the creativity.
Yeah.
When it comes to food.
Yes.
So,
yeah, I can understand that. I mean, I feel a bit bad because Ollie's doing a lot of cooking, so that's my out at the moment. But a tip with my food bag also that we've found is don't get the 5-day one. Only get it for 3 or 4 days.
I've gotten the 4-day one now.
Yeah, 4 days is
for
great.
2 people.
Yeah, for 4, right?
Oh, sorry, for 4 people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because then Friday night, do pesto pasta or something that's
something
super easy.
Okay.
Because by the end of the week, you're just tired and doing a whole elaborate recipe. Okay. Not here for it.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
And then it also leaves room for okay, maybe on Fridays we can reward ourselves with takeaways or something.
Easy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's my tip.
So that's my first attempt at budgeting, but I probably need to go a bit beyond just my food bag. So that. And then other things that we've been doing. So prior to going away, we were chatting to our accountant about some stuff, which I'll come back to. We've also been thinking about seeing a financial advisor. I say we, but it's really just me. I haven't flagged this with Luke yet either.
He's probably going to listen and be
I know. And I think that will happen, but I'm like, it's probably not an immediate urgency. So I thought maybe I'll just challenge myself to do the old Luke Kiwis, keep the change, month end wrap up thing.
Oh yeah. Okay. So what's the driver of it?
Just being more across stuff. I think we're just a little bit
relaxed.
Well, and relying on the excuse of we're too busy to think about it. And you think about the fact that we're in September and I'm like, what have we done this year? Not that it's about necessarily taking action or doing stuff to move forward, but I am a big believer of time will just pass, right? And then 3 years will pass and you're like, I didn't purposefully make any decision. I mean, we've just been purposefully making decisions to spend money. Yeah. Not necessarily purposefully making decisions for to future, also think about where we're getting forward or moving forward in the future. That said, we did decide to invest a little bit more of our money in Kernel and buying Kernel shares, which I then instantly had buyer's remorse on, which I'm happy to talk more about. Because not that I all of a sudden hated Kernel. Oh God. It's absolutely no reflection on the validity of the investment. But I think it was a really, really good lived example for people of why they say that high risk long-term investments need to be really strongly considered, because probably a week after we decided to do that and I paid the money, a number of things came up that I was like, oh God damn it, I wish I had that cash available right now to have the option to do this other thing. Yeah. And so,
do you mean, is that other things in terms of your
other
car
financial
blew up,
decisions?
or it was other investment?
Other financial decisions. So one of them was a little bit linked to, we've been talking to our accountant about restructuring our investment in Kernel specifically, but also our house into a trust, which I also think is somewhat of interest, because a lot of people are going the reverse at the moment. Obviously, trust tax rates going up to 39%. A lot of particularly older people are taking assets out of a trust, which makes a lot of sense. We have been thinking about doing the opposite for a number of reasons. One is linked to the restructuring of our home loans. I think I've talked about before, a lot of our debt that is held against our house has been borrowed for the purpose of investing in Kernel. Yeah. And so all of those loans are tax deductible against the owner of those shares' income, which is currently me. So I currently own the shares. Yeah.
So not you and Luke.
Yes, they're just in my name solely for simplicity.
And it's tax deductible against your income.
Correct.
As a sole loan person.
Yeah. So right now in my personal tax return, any of the interest repayments against that debt specifically can be deducted against my income. Yeah. And that's how I get tax refunds, which is super lovely. Yeah. So that's all fine, but we were like, is this the best way? Are there some other things that we could do to make it a bit smarter? Yeah. And one of the things, I'm probably going to butcher this a bit, so please, if anyone listens, don't at me. Go and talk to Vinay at Betterco about this, because he'll explain it much better than I will. But basically, What we could do and what we are considering doing is we could set up a trust, sell my shares from me to the trust, which is fine, basically at current valuation. They would therefore be sold into the trust at a higher valuation than like I bought them.
Yeah.
And because of that, you can therefore restructure the debt, because essentially the trust would like borrow money to buy those shares off me. And it basically means that we could take all of our mortgage and make it deductible rather than just the current portion. So right now, like 500K of our mortgage is actually still against our house, whereas 300K is against the shares, because we borrowed the money. 300K was obviously the value of the shares over various points in time, right? That we bought them. The shares are now worth much more than 300K.
Yeah.
So we could restructure that. So your total debt actually stays the same, but all of that debt is then tax deductible.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Kind of. Yeah.
So basically it's like a completely legitimate way to basically just restructure things. So our debt repayments wouldn't change, our total loans wouldn't change, but the treatment of those loans for the purposes of tax would be of benefit.
Okay.
And it means that like all of the interest that we're paying would be tax deductible. And of course, in a current situation where interest rates are quite high and our interest repayments are quite high, that's of more benefit.
Yeah.
In order to do that, there's obviously a couple of things. We have to set up the trust, which has costs involved, and then ongoing costs. And then we also had to talk about like what's the future of the shares and what do we plan to do with them, and therefore is owning them in a trust in the future the best outcome. So we kind of worked through that and decided that it still was. And then the other thing is that his suggestion, or our accountant's suggestion, was that we should also transfer our home into the trust, because we still have to have the mortgages secured against our property. And he was like, for the purposes of ongoing lending and just simplicity with the bank, it actually makes it a lot easier for things if it's all owned within one entity.
Okay.
So having like the shares and the house in the trust, and the loans that are associated with the shares are still like associated with the house as security, having those all within one structure just makes it a lot simpler. And he said something really interesting to me about just getting lending in general. He was like, it's about putting forward the simplest and most easily understood scenario to the credit risk person who's sitting in like an office at Westpac, so that they can get a full, easy understanding of you in a snapshot without having to like, you know, go through all these hurdles to truly assess how this all works.
Yeah, right. Do you
so
think
I was
that
like,
applies to property too?
100%.
It must, right? Yeah, to be
100%.
like, it's, you don't have money
100%.
coming from over here or over here. It's just straight like, here's your deposit. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, if you can make that person's job a lot easier, and they can really actually assess that you're very low risk, even if it means that you have a slightly more complexity to your structure, great.
Yeah. Tick.
Yeah. So
Good to know.
we were like, amazing. This plan sounds amazing. Let's go. Like, I have to chat to our broker about that, because it would require a change at the bank's end, but it would be fairly simple. And so then I went to call her and we had a chat, and she was like, Kat, this is a great plan in theory, but what's the value of your house right now? And I was like, what? And she's like,
Yeah, very good point.
well, unfortunately for us, in order to do that, we would have to get a registered valuation. Westpac are not going to allow us to transfer the home into a new structure without a registered valuation. And registered valuations only last for 12 months. And the point in time in which I called her to ask this was at month 13 and a half since our last registered valuation.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah. So lesson from here for everybody is like, don't fucking delay, guys. I've been sitting on this shit with the accountant
for like at least 3 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
6 months.
Yeah.
Easily. They presented this original proposal to us pre us going to New York.
Yeah, right.
And had we done it like earlier this year, you don't have to pay for a further registered valuation, and we wouldn't have had any challenge with the valuation. But now we're in this like catch-22 of, she was like, well, are you going to get the same registered valuation given on like where the property market is at the moment? Possibly not. Probably is going to have gone down.
Yeah.
Our debt has basically stayed the same. She's like, you'll be very close to the 80% LVR, like potentially a bit above it. And obviously if it's above it, they're not going to redo that structural change. And so, yeah.
So we're back
Watch
to
this
like,
space. Well, we're back to a point of inaction, Christine.
Yeah, right.
So, and then this is coming back to the whole buyer's remorse about then investing more money in Kernel. Is she
is
was
that why?
like, do you have 50K that you could like pay off a portion of your mortgage just to give you some flex? Like just pay it into your revolving credit facility to give you some flex. And I
and
was
you're
like,
like, yeah, maybe like 2 weeks ago.
yeah, I was like, not now. And then also I was like, we do have some money in savings, but then that would require us to basically wipe all of our external savings, which of course, makes me incredibly nervous of doing that. So
yeah. Sounds complicated, but also
right? Being an adult's really fun.
Yeah.
Have I told you?
I'm like, wow, I am like simple in comparison.
So yes. But then of course, so then the other thing is he's like, well, the incentive to do it sooner is like the sooner you can make all the loan tax deductible, the sooner we get benefit from that. We have no cash flow or intention to pay off that debt sooner rather than later. It's going to be deductible for quite some time. And so there is the incentive to try and make it happen because then we can maximize that.
Yeah.
I'm also now just like, well, I guess we've got to try and figure out some subtle way of seeing if we can get a valuation on our house that just meets what we need. But we'll see that. Maybe you just wait a few months for the property market to get a bit more peppy. I don't know, like spring, Christmas pep, who knows? We'll see.
Dropping interest rates.
That too.
Yeah.
So that was happening. And
I
then
have a question, just real quick.
Go for it.
So if someone is listening to the podcast now and they're like, but why don't you pay down your mortgage? Like, why would you be moving that to, do you know what I mean?
Like pay down it in general or just...
Yeah, just like you've said that you've kind of you don't have the intention to pay.
That is a fantastic question. So right now, if you look at our mortgage, like, as I said, I think 500 odd thousand of it is actually strictly related to us buying our house.
Yeah.
The remainder of our mortgage is in relation to us buying shares. And I mentally think of those portions as two entirely separate things, even though we pay interest, you know what I mean?
Like one sum.
Exactly. Yeah. So even though one lump sum is factored into our cash flow, in terms of the importance of paying each of those down, I think about it completely separately. One is purely for an investment purpose and a very long-term investment purpose. Yep. So I am under no pressure or illusion that we need to pay down that mortgage.
And that's the shares, to clarify.
Correct. Yep. And I'm actually like very comfortable to pay interest on those shares or interest on that loan for the shares, even if that interest rate is like 6.5%.
Yeah.
Whereas the amount that's associated against our house, should we have money in our cash flow to pay that down faster, we would do that. And actually the other update that I think I kind of missed out is we, in the last couple of months, moved all of the loans associated with the shares onto interest only, and then as a result slightly increased the regular repayment off the other portion.
Oh, I see.
So all the amount. So basically our total mortgage repayment stayed the same, but there's only interest only being repaid on the others and interest and principal being repaid on the house portion.
Yeah, nice. And the reason that you're happy to pay like interest on the shares portion is because you essentially have the hope that those shares are going to grow more than the 6.5%. Yeah,
exactly.
And the business.
Yeah, exactly. It's like investing for future income and earnings and capital growth, or like investing in a business, right?
Yeah.
And so I just look at that as like the cost of having that growth opportunity, whereas the other money is a lifestyle asset.
Yes, exactly.
So we don't want to pay interest on the lifestyle asset.
Because we can't sell our bathroom to fund our retirement.
Exactly. So that's slightly different.
Yeah, cool. Nice.
Yeah.
Love it.
The other last thing I've been doing is just basically personally learning about ESOP, which for people that don't know is an employee share options plan.
Yeah.
Because again, in the vein of like conversations with our accountant, basically getting a much deeper understanding of the point at which you exercise options and they therefore become shares in your name, you have tax consequences as an individual associated with that, and talking through like what that looks like, how you kind of think about that. There was a really great hack that I wasn't aware of at all in relation to like triggering tax bills over a threshold of $60,000, which then means you need to pay them within a certain time frame. So that was a really great thing. There was basically no nice loophole I could use to not pay the tax, but there were some ways in which if we were to exercise these options, I could delay paying the tax. Now, in classic Luke mindset, it is literally a case of like, we're going to have to find a reasonable sum of money to pay a tax bill. But we're like, there's a 2026 problem.
Oh my God.
I know.
That freaks me out.
Right. I knew that you would be stressed. But that's the reality.
Yeah.
Because I'm like,
maybe the shares take off.
Okay, but that's not a good enough.
It's not a short-term thing either,
so my
so,
current approach is like, we have to figure out how we're going to get that money from cash flow, like from savings.
Yeah.
The only benefit here is that we have potentially 18 months to save that money.
Yeah, so
but how are we
now.
going to do that?
Yeah.
So
second job maybe.
So yeah, I feel like there's maybe no 4-week holidays in my foreseeable future.
Yeah.
But also, you know what I'm like, I just don't live in reality. So
well, but also at least, you know, you've come off the back of that. And so I feel like 18 months is also a good amount of time to knuckle down, you know, and then
and we believe in that whole thing of like, you just have to think positively. Like you can't, you could look at that and be stressed out about it. But I'm like, no, you've just got to have the approach of like, we're going to figure this out. Like the money is going to arrive. We're going to do the things to make the money appear.
Manifest that.
We are. I'm full. Well, shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll start a GoFundMe. No, I won't. Okay. So that's all my updates.
Nice. Okay, great. We've got quite a range there.
I was like, your and my updates are very different. This month.
Now to bring this back down to me.
People of less complexity and psychoticness.
Just more simplicity, baby. Okay, so my updates were, well, basically I said last time that I wanted to track my expenses more closely. And so before that, I kind of had rough buckets around. I knew that roughly this amount needed to go to food and roughly this was to therapy or whatever else. But I got to the point where I was like, I feel like I'm not sticking to these buckets consistently. And so clearly I'm either spending too much or I need to cut something down or, you know, something's happening.
And it was just a gut feel, right? Like you didn't actually know if you were in the bucket, out of the bucket.
Like, or if I was breaking even. And I think I just got annoyed at myself a little bit because I was like, I just need to be a bit more in control. And it's actually been really great. I just stalked this, you know how you get served on Instagram, these random like financial, probably us really, but like, you know, people sitting at their desk doing like budget trackers and stuff.
Yeah.
I've seen these too. And I went and checked
bought one?
it. Yeah, I bought one of their like template things. It was like $5 or something.
Was it good?
So good. I'm like,
Excel.
this is so much faster than me trying to do this myself. It has all the pretty colors, all the graphs. You input it does this, and all these Excel. Yeah, it's great.
A good side hustle.
Yeah, it was really good. I was like, I wonder how much money she makes. So anyway, bought that, and I've been kind of weekly or fortnightly writing down going through my bank feed, every single thing. And I'm 6 weeks in, so I've done August.
Are you doing the like Excel output, or are you just kind of
just manually.
Okay.
Yeah. Really, it's probably a bit tedious and slow, but
you're doing it on a weekly basis.
No, probably more like fortnightly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there lots of transactions?
Oh, I mean, like, there's a lot of coffee. So it's insightful in that way.
I guess the reason I was going to say there's a lot of transactions is I was thinking about my account. But with a joint account, you have a lot of transactions because you've got two people using the card. But I'm like, yes, I forget. Single, probably fine.
Yeah, it's probably a bit more simple.
You're not like both going to the supermarket every day.
No.
I mean, we don't do that, but yes.
Yeah. And I try to factor in, like, if Ollie pays for something that I have to pay half of, I try to account for that. Yes. So I guess what I'm learning is that I'm not actually as terrible as I thought I was, which is great. And I have been saving more than I thought I was, even despite like my PT journey, which I'm going to talk about in a second.
Why did you think you weren't saving as much then?
I just felt like my savings amount on a fortnightly basis wasn't staying, like I wasn't being disciplined enough. And so I would look to that to then take out money to do certain things.
Okay.
But then I think I actually just realised that I have allowed enough of a buffer in my other everyday spending accounts, and I don't really spend on, I mean, I hadn't been spending on travel and those kinds of things to allow to be able to like take the hits of those costs like ongoing or even just for a short amount of time.
Yep.
But since that, I've also been like, okay, I need to take action on what is working for me and what isn't. So I got a PT, and that was roughly, I just like cringe at the thought of saying this, but it ended up, because I haven't said it yet.
You had a full 180 on this PT session.
Yeah. So I did it for 2 months. And
I hope Tim's laughing. Or have we already dissected this within the team?
No. I said it on an episode with Ravi recently. So if you haven't listened to that, feel free to go back. because he digs into, he's like, what?
Was he not impressed with how much you spent?
No, I think he was trying to understand why I felt guilty about spending this money on something that I clearly value, because my thing has always been health. I value my health, and I don't really have a ceiling with how much I spend. But I think it's actually just understanding, am I being ridiculous here? And like, is this really value for money? Or am I actually just using excuses, you know, to get to the outcome that I want, which is to be healthier, i.e. like just show up and do the exercise. Like, do I actually need someone holding me accountable, telling me every minute? Yeah. Well,
I mean, you only know the answer to that.
Yeah. So, well, this is the journey that I've come back to. So got the PT and I loved it. I just loved the fact that it was a scheduled time twice a week. I had to be there. There was a financial consequence of not doing it. Someone also, you don't have to think, because they plan the exercises, you show up, they are telling you what to do every step of the way. And I did see improvements, but I think I got to the point where I was like, this is actually starting to hinder my other financial goals now. And so the cost of it is just too high.
How much was it weekly?
$140.
Okay.
So adding that up, like that was...
On top of, you need to also pay a gym membership.
Yeah, so Plus,
how much is
plus I was also doing Pilates.
Okay.
Which is not, Reformer Pilates is not cheap. Les Mills is $35 a week.
Okay. And probably like Reformer once a week is $30.
Yeah, ish.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm like, that is a decent sum that
so
you
like
could be saving.
$200 a week.
Yeah. That like hurts me to say.
That's not, when we did triathlon, I paid my coach our coach like $250 a month, but that's just to get someone to write you a plan, and then like you have to pay for like
on it.
and you have to pay for pool fees and
cycle a bike,
and all the stuff around it.
Yeah, so but what I've kind of come back to is like the thing that stuck, the form of exercise that has always stuck is Reformer Pilates. So if I actually just went all in on that, would I still enjoy it and see the progress? Okay. And so I've cut the gym membership, I've cut the PT, and now I'm going all in on Reformer.
You've cut the gym membership?
Yeah, because I just was like, nah, it's too hard. Oh, and so then I also had bought a scooter for $300, right, to help remove the barrier to get to the gym.
Yeah. Okay.
So I sold that too, because I was like, nah,
oh my gosh,
screw it all, it's not working. I'll just actually do the one thing that is.
I love how you are just so consistent to your personality.
Yeah, all or nothing, all the time. Don't worry, it's my theme in therapy is how do you make sustainable growth. Yeah.
But I mean, like it doesn't matter though.
It's not serving me. So I'm like, why continue and have it be the thing that means that I actually have to delay getting a haircut because it's the same cost. And that's where that money comes from. You know? Yeah. Yeah.
So just quickly to dissect, do you think was it the cost or was it the type of exercise?
It's the cost.
Okay.
Yeah, because I actually really like lifting weights when I feel like good about it.
So is Ollie like, why don't you just join my $7 a week gym?
Yeah, but I think it's the accountability, like, and the planning of the sessions. I don't like going there and feeling out of place.
Why don't
and
you
like
try
a
like
grunty
PFT
gym
or something?
Because it's high intensity. I hate.
Not all of it is.
I hate it. Oh, really?
You just have to, just don't go to the...
Isn't it like HIIT and stuff?
No, not all the sessions. No. Like 4 sessions a week are purely weights.
Oh.
Yeah, there are some sessions that like you do 3 weights exercises in the whole set.
Oh.
Okay, well maybe I should then. There's so much time to chat. That's why I have gym friends.
We don't work out. We just talk. Maybe because I think it is it's the accountability of the class setting and the ease of which you don't have to make up the exercise. Yeah, working.
Of course.
Yeah, so at least I've concluded the best thing. Yeah, maybe.
I'll bully you into this.
Okay. Maybe I'll make some friends too. So I've come back to that.
Okay.
That's where we're at with exercise.
So how much do you think you'll have to spend then on
Reformer Pilates? Yeah, well, I've signed up and they had a great deal. It was like a 6-month membership because I was like, I'll give it 6 months of consistent 3 classes a week and it's $17 a class. Okay. Which is, it's like half of the price of a casual rate, right?
Yeah.
So what is that? 51. Okay. So that's kind of the same cost as like a CrossFit membership.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think like BFT is like 55.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But then Ollie kindly said to me, anything less than like 100, you're still saving 50% of what you were.
Yes.
Right?
Fair.
So, and if it's the thing that I value, so that's where we're at. Cool. We also went on a week-long holiday locally. So we went to where did we go? The Mount, Waiheke and Rotorua, random little mix of places. And yeah, it was good. Definitely not like overseas, but a nice relaxing time. I don't actually have a breakdown of how much we spent, but it wasn't
Probably on par with your budget, right?
Yeah,
Or
it wasn't
we
outrageous.
talked about and you saved and
Yeah, and there was one Airbnb.
you took your own car.
Yeah, we drove. Yeah. And it we tried to do things where we took our own car to Waiheke because actually taking the people ferry versus your whole car and then renting the car, it's actually just cheaper to take the ferry, right?
Yep.
We had this one Airbnb experience though that wasn't great, where it was kind of an off the grid place and it was just terribly disgusting and like so dirty, hair everywhere. There was dirt, in the shower, like cow shit all on the front door. Like it was so bad and looked nothing like
Like
the
they hadn't
photos.
cleaned it?
No, and it was like black mold on the kitchen and
gosh,
everything. Yeah, it was so bad. So
Did you savage them in the review?
No, we left. Like so we
You left?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I've never had an Airbnb experience
Yeah,
like this.
it was.
Tell me.
We were like, "Whoa, this is like burnt our perception of what Airbnbs are like."
Oh no.
Yeah. So we got there, and you have to lug your stuff in like 20 minutes, right? So it's not an easy. And also, the first red flag was the guy wasn't in the country; he was in Europe on holiday, and so he had outsourced it to someone else. And then the instructions on the Airbnb page weren't there, so we were driving around for an hour trying to find this place.
Oh no.
And the person was really unresponsive. So then we finally figure it out, arrive there, go to the place, look around, see it's gross. Ollie's on the phone to Airbnb immediately to be like, this is unacceptable, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
The guy on the phone is like, yeah, the thing that they fixated on, because obviously they need proof of what's wrong, was having the cow poo like right in the living space, basically. And before people come at me, like I realized that it was on a farm, but we had been at a different farm stay right before that was completely clean. Yeah, and beautiful and exactly the same price. So I feel like we had a comparison point of it being just totally ridiculous. Yeah. And so
did you have to send them photos?
Yeah, we took photos of everything, and so we sent it to the Airbnb guy, and he gave us a refund on the spot. And he was like, "Yep, leave right now. We'll refund the whole thing, and we'll give you a credit of like $150 or something like that." So we were like, "Oh, perfect." So then a day later, we get a message from the Airbnb owner or host, basically trying to claim damages for $500, which was the cost of the stay, because he was claiming that we damaged the outdoor bath and tried to start a fire. And so what had happened?
Like, hi, we didn't stay here.
Well, literally, like we took photos, and also you don't have any proof that wasn't broken before we got there. And so what I think the problem or what had happened was Ollie was like looking at the bath to see how does this work, and so he tried to open it, but I can hand on heart say that he didn't break it. And so we ended up in this like email battle with Airbnb, back and forth, arguing over $500, because also that's like the cost of this stay. So it was evident that he was just trying to recoup the cost, right?
Yeah.
But then we came in with you don't have any proof that we didn't break it, and then we won. So we got that.
You're like, so sorry.
Yeah, so it was a great outcome financially, but it meant that it kind of put a damper on our holiday because we came back to Auckland early and that kind of thing. Yeah, but that's okay.
Okay.
We were able to use that money to go to Waiheke anyway, so it was fun.
Like, Waiheke lunches.
Yeah, silver lining. Okay. Yeah. So that, and then we also have upgraded a bit of our furniture. So we've been on this like
You bought a table.
Yeah. Chairs, a TV, cabinet. Oh, we got a Dyson. Oh my God, life changing. Ollie was like, I've never seen you so happy in my life. I was like, this is so sad that I'm so excited about a vacuum. But all up, I think we probably spent a couple grand. But what has prompted? Well, firstly, Ollie is like the master at entering competitions and winning them. So he won like a $500 no leaving voucher, which basically cost got half of the price of the card, and then he also used someone AirPoint. So I'm like, this is like basically free girl mass. So just because we kind of think, well, if we're not going away and traveling, we want to enjoy the space that we're in, right? And we're not moving houses to get a bigger space, so let's make it nicer. And that is paying dividends. Like it makes me want to be at home so much more, which is great. Yeah, so good. Other things are we invested money in Kernel. So we finally made the decision to do
Did
that.
you have buyer's remorse?
Not really.
I mean, it checks out.
I mean, it was like...
You weren't immediately hit with like, hey, you have a tax bill.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it was pretty like nice to get the money out of short-term savings, but also mildly depressing because you're like, now I need to rebuild this again, you know? But that's fine, yeah. So that was good. We're actually doing something, which then leads us on to, we obviously have decided not to buy a house and invest more money in the business for now. But that's okay because we also didn't overstretch ourselves to the point where buying a house in the short term is not an option. So
Cool.
as their underlying assets in between our KiwiSaver, we still have enough to buy a property. We just don't want to go all in on one particular thing yet anyway. So that's good.
Love that.
Now, the final thing that I'm going to end on is...
I'm ready for it.
Yeah. Basically, I feel like a little bit, and this is totally coming from maybe a point of privilege. There's a lot of people that I know right now getting like a casual 100K from their parents or family or in some capacity. And it's making me really resentful. Because I
feel like every one of these Money Moments episodes we have a moment of this and I'm like, Christine, okay, let's dig in. Let's dig in.
Okay, so
I'm getting rid of my notes.
Yeah.
Say more.
The therapy's coming out.
Yeah.
So the conversation that we've had in the past is that there's often a reason why people get this money. It's so that their parents can help them get ahead. And I totally understand that, as well as maybe, a grandparent has passed away or something, like it's been as a result of something that's sad. Yeah. So I'm not taking away from that. But I think what I'm feeling is that it's definitely like it can feel a bit disheartening when you know that A, you're not going to be getting that, and B, like you're trying really hard to save and to make sacrifices, honestly, like us choosing not to go overseas and invest that money instead because we know that we need to like buckle down and do that now. And then when we actually like equate, well, if we were able to have a lump sum of 100K, how long would that take for us to save? And it would take us like 4 to 5 years. And so the reality is that you just can't outsave that.
Yeah.
Or like it's very hard to outsave the pace at which that enables people to get ahead. And, I don't want to sound like whiny and ungrateful, and I appreciate that.
You don't need to sound whiny and ungrateful.
But I think it's a hard thing to swallow sometimes when you're like, man, I feel like I'm working my ass off over here, and am I making any progress?
Yeah. Yeah. It is really tough.
Yeah. But what I will say, though, is that I think it's given me a newfound appreciation for people like my sister who has just bought her second property.
Yep.
And she's completely self-made. And I'm like, good for you. Like you've like hustled hard. You've not had handouts, like proud of you.
Yep. Do you think, is it solely in relation to property?
No.
Like if you had some friends that were given $100,000 to start a business, do you think you'd feel the same?
Well, I know probably not as much, but I do know people that have done that, where it's like the starting point is just so vastly different, regardless of the choice that you make as to what you do with that money.
Yeah, because I guess what I was thinking is like, is it easy to feel like this because property is something that you also want? And what I'm hearing is like you're inadvertently in competition with these other people because in the sense that like you need to get into the same property market that someone else is also trying to get into. Yeah. And you're feeling like they've got a leg up and are able to perhaps outpace you into the same property market.
Yeah.
But flipping it to be like, well, if that same friend got given some money to start a business and you don't want to start a like beauty salon, do you care as much?
Yeah. I'm not sure because I think as you say that, what I think about is I think it's the freedom of choice in terms of like the lifestyle choice or being driven by lifestyle factors versus financial factors. So when I think like, it makes me question like, something that I've always talked about is wanting to move overseas in the medium term, let's say. Why would I do that if that's going to put me behind financially when I could grind more now? And do you know what I mean? And so then I think if I wasn't getting that leg up, that changes the perspective I have on what motivates me in my career and life to then be financially secure. Because I'm also very aware of the fact that I'm 29, women have a biological clock, like all of these things start to compound where you're like, oh, I need to like put down the hatches and save and grow. When is there time to like actually just live a little?
Yeah.
And so I don't know
a
if
tricky
that's
one.
like linked to property.
Yeah. In terms of like how you're feeling about this specifically, has it been at all to do with like how these people have told you?
Not written. A lot of it has been like as a result of people passing away and like that kind of thing. And I think that people, I mean, my friends know that I talk on a podcast, so they're very like open in one sense, but also like, are you going to grill me for this? And so maybe not the delivery of the message, but more the action that follows, where it's like, okay, you've been given this thing, but you can still do all the other things. There's no sacrifice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm the problem. Like, do I need to change my mindset?
I mean, look, I'm not going to say that. because I think it's one of those situations where like both things can be true at once, right? Like I think it's important to acknowledge the feelings that you have about this, which is that it's completely valid to feel like other people have a bigger leg up than you do at times, because that is the reality. You can't argue with that. And we've talked about this before. Like you and I have both been in situations where we have in some way or shape form had the leg up. Whereas right now you're feeling like the opposite, right? But that can be true. And then also it can be true that it's you that needs to reconcile that.
Yeah.
You know, because part of me thinks, well, okay, someone could get $100,000 and still be fucking miserable.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And not potentially get ahead. You know, like your perception of it is, well, what would I do, or what would I be able to do if I had $100,000? Like if that magically dropped into my bank account tomorrow, how would my life be different? And I would be able to do that. And I feel a bit frustrated that I can't, because I don't have like this magical money fairy that's going to enable me to do that. But just because you could do that doesn't guarantee that that other person will.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
in fact, like 2, 5, 10 years from now, there is nothing to say that they're going to be in a better situation than you are.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess that's the difference between rich and wealthy.
But then also it's like, I think just because you can maybe recognize that doesn't mean you shouldn't allow yourself to also feel frustrated. It's just, I think, like thinking about, you know, the mindset stuff that we talk on, you don't want to stay over that side in the phase of feeling like less than frustrated, hard done by. You want to slowly over time be able to like get yourself to a place of like, okay,
my worth is not attached to my like
exactly. And what I do with money is different to what someone else does with money. And actually, like so many people over the course of your life are going to give and receive money in different ways, and how that ends up, you know, like that's because someone else has something doesn't mean you can't have something in the future too. Yes, that's it. You're just not going to necessarily get it in the same way that they have, but that's not to say that you can't have that thing as well.
Yeah, it's just different.
And that's why I was like, is it strictly in relation to property? Because if it is, then I think that also lends itself into the whole conversation of like, as a country, we're so obsessed with property and it gets so much airtime, and it does feel very, very hard regardless of how you get money as a first home buyer to like get into the market or get beyond that. But I was like, but if it's just about the money specifically, then it's a little bit potentially easier to reconcile your own thoughts around that, because you could be like, well, I don't know, they could get $100,000 and just go to Europe for a year.
Yeah.
And they'll probably
then they come
be
back
really
in the same
tanned and like potentially happy. But like, you know, there will be other negatives as well associated with that.
I do think it is something like it's the underlying psychology piece around that, and like self-worth, I think ultimately, and tying that too closely to those things, and which is challenging, honestly, and especially when you're in a country where like tall poppy syndrome, you know, like I also recognize I don't want to be that person that's like looking to like put down other people to bring myself up. And so I think that's why it's so front of mind at the moment of like, how do I not weather the storm, but like take these kind of hits, or like, you know, and still come out like in a better mindset.
I think potentially it's one of the reminders to yourself of just because someone has something doesn't mean I can't also have that. You know, it's that thing of like, just because someone else has been able to make $100,000 doesn't mean I can't make $100,000.
It's the pie thing, right? There's enough to go around.
There is enough to go around. Like there is, and it's just how you will get to that financial outcome will 100% be different to how all of your other friends do that. But having the belief within yourself that if that's where you want to get to, you'll be able to do that. And it doesn't matter how they get there, because there'll also be enough money in the like
ecosystem
of dollars that you will also be able to get there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I mean, that's my inner thoughts.
Love this.
Yeah.
Love this.
Love some vulnerability.
I think that's good though. I think, to be honest, like, but we've talked about this before, right?
Yeah.
Like I completely feel empathetic to where you are, because I think it's really hard, and I think some of it is also age and experience and seeing how those things play out. And I know you put in your little show notes, like, it also changes over time, and we've talked about this before, where like the older you get and the more variance there is in people's careers and earning potential, it starts to become harder, because it's easier to see the financial differences between you and your peers.
Yeah.
As people's careers progress in particular, and as people's parents age, or as like certain things happen and they make decisions, like that's also it. When you're in your early 20s, there's kind of, for the majority of your friends or your social circle, everyone's making a relatively similar like group of decisions, right? You might have that one outlier that's the person that starts a business at 22, but the vast majority of 22-year-olds are not doing that. As you get closer to like 30 and then 40, that starts to, I think, just become a bit more varied, and it makes it hard. And I think like you're so self-aware that you know that that's A, something that you feel, and then B, is potentially not how you want to feel. So you're conscious that you're trying to change it, which is already so much better than people that can't recognize that and then get more down that kind of, scarcity, like negative mindset about it, or become a little bit resentful towards people, which is also not a great way to be.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I also had in the show notes around like this, I think is kind of the intention of the podcast that we come back to, is like, I can see how when you share more, it also creates a desire to then not share, because once you are so like open and you know what your friends get paid and you know what they're investing, and like you try to have these conversations, it also comes with like the burden of comparison, because I think inherently we are
which
wired
then makes you look inward.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, oh my God, am I like, is this my self-worth? Like,
am I a failure?
Like,
I feel a bit jealous.
Yeah, exactly. Like they can go on the European holiday and I can't, or I'm choosing not to. I think that's the language is I'm choosing to set myself up in a different way in place of doing that thing. Yeah. So some nice deep thoughts to end on.
The deep thoughts at the end.
Yeah, but I mean, the other thing that I will say is Ollie and I are actually finally prioritizing some lifestyle stuff, where I think after this feeling of stuff, we're like, okay, next April we're going on a holiday and it's going to be a decent one. So yeah, hopefully that's like giving us something to look forward to as well.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Love it.
Love that.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Would love any feedback you have. Hopefully positive. I'm like, maybe not on what I said.
She's in a space where she needs to be built up.
Yeah. Just before we sign off, want to say a big thanks to Kernel for enabling us to do what we do. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe wherever you're tuning in, whether that's video, YouTube, or listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you have questions, feel free to get in touch at It's No Secret on Instagram. Send us episode requests, feedback, and more. But other than that, we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.